budding watch enthusiast. So today we are doing the full review of the Ocean Crawler Core Diver, which I have had for a little while now, and I'm happy to be able to talk about this watch. Before we get into the full review of this watch in particular, a little bit of history on Ocean Crawler as a brand. They're definitely a newer micro brand, only been around for a couple of years, but they have a lot of different watch models to their name. Christian Champion is the gentleman who basically is Ocean Crawler. And on their website, his big focus is reliability, accuracy, durability, and style. I can especially say they focus on the durability piece, putting the watches through really rigorous testing, including exposing the watch to very powerful impacts while ensuring that it remains unharmed and properly functioning. And if we take it to the Core Diver here, I can definitely say that the durability piece is a huge focus. This thing is built like a tank, so let us get into the specs on this watch and talk about the different features that it has. So working from the outside in, you do have a 316L stainless steel case with a brushed finish pretty much everywhere on the case, with the exception of these two beveled edges down either side of the watch, which offers a little bit of contrast. Do especially appreciate that we do have stout lugs on this watch with a slight downward curve just to match it with the bottom of the case. That does give this watch a bit of a cushion case aesthetic, which does help as well because the watch is a little bit larger. You do have a screw down case back here with the Ocean Crawler logo and literature on the sides. You have a very generously sized screw down crown at the 3 o'clock side of the watch with an engraved Ocean Crawler logo. And if we flip the watch around on the 9 o'clock side, we do have an auto opening helium escape valve for deep sea diving. And because of the stature of this case, you can see, as it says on the dial, this is a 2,000 foot or 600 meter dive watch. So that, you know, when you do your deep sea dives, this is a great companion for that because it can go to pretty much any depth that you would need to. Let's talk about the dimensions of this watch. It is 44 millimeters wide. It has a lug length of 50 millimeters, a height of 15.5 millimeters. That's assisted by this 4 millimeter thick sapphire crystal that's in the watch, and a lug width of 22 millimeters. The bracelet included on every Ocean Crawler Core Diver is this H-Link Shark Mesh bracelet, which is very, very high in quality. And if it has a butterfly clasp, which if we look underneath, does have a completely unnecessary but still very much appreciated machine-turned finish on the inner part of the clasp. You do get screw-in links with this H-Link mesh bracelet that does come with this. Of course, though, being a butterfly clasp, you do not get any micro adjustments. The Core Diver also does come with a leather strap in a complementary color and stitching. The strap is of pretty good quality. The buckle does have the Ocean Crawler logo on it as well, and we'll talk about that when we get to the review portion of this. So as I mentioned, there is a very thick, flat sapphire crystal on this watch that does have AR coating. And if we look to the bezel as well, it is a flat sapphire crystal bezel as well for the insert, instead of having ceramic or aluminum. You do see small scallops on the bezel to align with the hour markers on the watch. And this is a 120 click bezel. It can be tricky to turn with gloves. It does turn very easily with your regular fingers though. So looking at this orange dial on this particular model of the Core Diver, a very vibrant orange, considering this is not like a sunburst effect on this dial at all. It still manages to kind of give off a very flashy and noticeable color. This watch does have a couple other colorways too. There is a black dial version, and there's also a blue sunburst version as well, if that is more your style. We do have applied steel markers at each of the hour indices, with a slight downward slope to them, and they of course have Luminova in them as well. A double marker at 12 o'clock just to help with orientation, and they are situated inside of this white chapter ring that runs around the outside of the dial with just simple minute markers. But it's cool because the chapter ring does sit. It's hard to get it on camera here, but you can see it does sit above the dial, and that does assist in giving the dial a little bit of added depth to it as well. So for the hands, we do have black-rimmed plongeur hands for this watch, along with an arrow-tip second hand that is orange tipped. It's kind of hard to notice that at first because it does sort of get lost in the dial as it goes around. Of course, you see this round cutout date indicator at 6 o'clock on the dial. And then all of the markers, hands, and bezel markings are coated with a very generous amount of BGW9 Super Luminova. And I will give you guys a lume shot right here so that you guys can check out to see what this looks like all loomed up. And the Ocean Crawler Core Diver is powered by a Sellita SW200 that has been tuned for extra accuracy. The movement does run at 28,800 vibrations per hour, which means that second hand is moving 8 times per second, which is why you get that nice, smooth sweep. The performance that I've seen on this particular model does back up that extra accuracy. I've been seeing this watch only gaining about 1.5 seconds per day while it's been in my possession, which is frankly phenomenal, especially for a watch in this price range. And here's what the Ocean Crawler Core Diver looks like on my 8-inch wrist. The bracelet's a little bit loose because I didn't size it. Again, I'm one of those folks that I think is in between sizes on this bracelet. So again, it still fits comfortably, but definitely very loose. I probably could afford to take a link out of it, but then I'd be worried that it would be a little too tight. As you can see, the watch is fairly well proportioned. The lugs do not let it overhang too much. And because of that, I think it does wear very comfortably, albeit a little bit heavy, as we'll talk about in the review portion. So this is definitely a tool dive watch. It's probably the first diver that I've ever had in my possession that I feel like I'd be doing it a disservice if I didn't at least take it swimming with me. Like it's begging you to take it into the water, which is something that I can't necessarily say for every dive watch that comes out nowadays. So this Core Diver is, I would say, it's unforgivingly modern and bold. And that is one of the things that I do love most about micro brands is the ability to make watches like this that you don't always see from the large brands. The mesh strap that this comes on is really fantastic and comfortable. It's insanely high quality. The only criticism that I would have of it is that the H-links on it are so large that it can be a little tricky to get the fit just right because, again, you don't have a micro adjustment. So if your wrist just happens to be in between links with this watch, it might be tough just to get it to the point where it is the most comfortable it can be for you. I also do appreciate that the watch did come with a leather strap as well, but for me, really, it's not a style that I think suits this watch very well. For me, leather works much better when you're looking at like a vintage style diver, a smaller dive watch. So again, I appreciate the fact that it's in there. I would have much rather seen like a heavy-duty rubber strap to go along with this because I feel like it would have been far more useful than the leather that it comes with. The dial on this watch is beautiful, and I think it's the watch's greatest feature. Is just, again, this very vibrant dial, this very bold color. I've also been fortunate enough to get to experience all the different colorways that the Core Diver line has to offer. And they're all equally as good. The blue sunburst is probably my personal favorite, but I do love this orange as well, for sure. I also appreciate the sapphire bezel here. It's a choice you don't see all that often. It's much more common in micro brands than in larger brands. But I think, pardon the pun, I think it works swimmingly on this watch, as it just kind of feels like it matches the overall aesthetic of the watch more than like a ceramic bezel would possibly have, and definitely more than an aluminum bezel would as well. I just think it works really, really well for what this watch is trying to do. I do also love having this chapter ring around the outside of the dial that does have the cutouts for the markers because it allows the dial to have a little bit of added depth without feeling really cramped and crowded. I will say, though, that I do wish that the markers were executed a little bit more consistently than you see here on this watch. The gaps between the markers and the chapter ring aren't noticeable at a quick glance, but if you really do drill down in there and take a close look, you do see some gaps between them. Like, not all of the markers are sitting back against the chapter ring. Not all of them are centered in the chapter ring. And that's not a big deal. It's a very, like, nitpicky sort of thing, but it's one of those things that once you see it, it's hard to unsee it, and I just kind of wish that had been executed a little bit better. Now, the watch is obviously large at 44 millimeters, but I think it's proportioned exceptionally well, thanks to the fact that the lugs are a little bit shorter. If this had super long lugs, it would make it completely unwearable. for a large portion of the watch community. But because you have, like I said, the shorter lugs that make the case a little bit more square, you might be able to get away with wearing this watch even if 44 millimeters normally would be way too large for you to wear. Oddly enough, though, the case, even though this is probably one of the tallest watches that I've ever seen, especially for a non-chronograph, it does not feel as tall as the 15.5 millimeters that it is when it's on your wrist. And again, I think that lends itself to the fact that the watch is very well proportioned. And I think also that's partly because the crystal doesn't extend up very far past the bezel. You don't have like a domed crystal or anything like that. The watch is very heavy though. I do have it weighed in at 198 grams on the metal. Obviously, if you trade this out for a NATO strap, or the leather strap that the watch comes with, that's gonna take it down a little bit. But if you don't like a heavy watch, you're probably not gonna like wearing this one on your wrist as well. So yeah, I think the Ocean Crawler Core Diver is a fantastic option. This watch costs pretty much right at $1,000. And I will say that before I got to spend some time with this watch, I did think that $1,000 was a little too high priced. I thought the brand might have been punching up a little too far. But after getting some time to use it, after getting to spend some time with it, I think it does really live up to that price point. Between the really just solid feel of the watch, between the excellent movement that is inside of it, I think that that is a very fair price point, especially if you're going to be taking advantage of its effectiveness as a tool diver with a really solid movement. For a normal user, for me, this is one of the first watches that I would grab for like a beach vacation or to use as like a really fun summertime watch in a casual setting. Obviously, this isn't going to really work too well in a very formal setting. It's just a little too bright, a little too big. But again, as a sort of an everyday wear during the summer, or again, if you're going to be using it as a tool, it's a pretty good value at $1,000, I do think. Overall, I'm very pleased with the Ocean Crawler Core Diver. Very much enjoyed the time that I got to spend with it. And again, if you guys are looking for a micro brand option that's really good quality, that's a little off the beaten path and maybe a little bit different than the same old like Submariner style diver that you see out there, I would definitely give Ocean Crawler a look. Again, the Core Diver is an excellent watch, and if this isn't your thing, they might have a couple other models that may interest you as well. So guys, that is it for this review of the Ocean Crawler Core Diver. If you found this video entertaining or informative, do me a favor, hit the like button down below. If you're new to the channel, thank you very much for checking it out. If you enjoyed what you saw, hit the red subscribe button and ring the bell icon so you never miss when I post a new episode. And I'm also on Instagram. If you want to follow me there, all you have to do is seek out @buddingwatchenthusiast and click the follow button. Thank you guys very much for watching. I will see you all the next time.